know there was a few stragglers that came in there. If you want to comment on an agenda item tonight, there is a sign-up sheet up here. If you sign up, then we will call on you.
The first item tonight for tonight's meeting would be the minutes from October 1st and September 17th. I ask for a motion for the approval by the board.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Personnel this evening. First on the list, looking for approval for Travis Zippel as the 7th and 8th grade boys basketball coach.
I'll make a motion to approve Travis Zippel for 7th and 8th grade basketball coach.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Eric Snyder as the 5th and 6th grade boys basketball coach.
I'll make a motion to approve him.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Mike Schollenberg, 5th and 6th grade boys basketball assistant.
I'll make a motion to approve Mike Schoenberg for 5th and 6th grade boys assistant.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Amanda Cox, 7th and 8th grade cheerleading in Palms.
I'll make a motion to approve Amanda.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
And Christy Shute as the 5th and 6th grade cheerleading coach.
I'll make a motion to approve Christy Shoup for the 5th and 6th grade cheerleading coach.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
And motion approved.
Thank you.
Next fight item this evening would be the claim docket.
Make a motion to approve the claim docket.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. The next line I will see the balance sheet. Are there any questions by the board on the balance sheet? If not, we'll move on to the next line item. So the next line item this evening would be public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? I know we have some sign-ups that agree to say something.
Justin Keel.
Okay. Firstly, I'd like to express my disappointment with the difficulty I experienced getting confirmation of this week's meeting location. It's one thing to make a typo on the agenda earlier this month. It could happen to anyone. It's fine. But failing to respond for 2 days and necessitating me to contact a board member to get clarification is, quite frankly, unprofessional. In 2019, Tri-Township transferred $78,000 from its education fund, which pays teacher salaries, to its operations fund, which pays for capital projects and non-classroom staff. Interestingly, this exacerbated the education fund deficit and operations fund surplus that Mr. Crimmins informed you about earlier this year, but makes no mention of it. I checked the minutes and there is no record of this being approved as is required by law, and I checked my more detailed notes and I can't find anything that suggests that it was even discussed in 2019. And perhaps this is why the school corporation was written up by the State Board of Accounts in its most recent audit for failing to properly approve transfers. Now on your agenda tonight, you indicate you're seeking approval to transfer funds from the education fund to the operations fund. What is the amount and the purpose of this transfer, and do you anticipate additional transfers before the end of this year?
Tonight, our resolution will be for a transfer from education to operations for the calendar year of '21, not to exceed 120,000. So it'll be a 10,000 monthly transfer.
For what purpose?
To fund things that since the state of Indiana changed their fund accounting system in 2019, some of those funds that come into the education fund get transferred into the operation fund to cover unfunded items.
Now, in 2019, this created an even greater deficit in the education fund. Why would that be?
Well, that's why we've made an adjustment on the amount we're transferring.
Yes, it's increased, I see. 78 in 2019, and this year we're looking at 120. That's what you said, right? 120?
I don't believe yours is accurate.
That came from the Department of Education.
Well, because we haven't done a $78,000 transfer.
It was 2 transfers, each equaling to a total of 78.
Because previously, we've had a transfer from the education to operations and not to exceed 400,000.
Okay.
So for this coming budget, we've put in a not to exceed 120,000. Because every school in the state is trying to modulate and find here, where now that we're just a couple years into this new budgeting process, we're trying to find that proper amount. Now, the good thing is those funds can be transferred back and forth between those two funds.
Another question. Tonight is the school corporation's budget adoption, which is on your agenda. Will you be adopting with it a findings in regard to the petition that was filed earlier this month, and do you intend to share it during the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let you do that later.
Thank you.
241 days ago, I requested financial records related to what has been spent over the past 5 years on maintenance at both schools. You have budget categories for maintenance at both schools. You've been tracking this information. The finances of the school are public, and there's no real reason that it would take 241 days to produce these records. So why is the school wasting taxpayer money to use an attorney to delay this process? For what reason are you stalling?
That would have to be answered by our attorney.
Okay, which will cost more money, but okay. What about the other 3 requests that I made? All have been over 3 weeks now.
Right now, I don't have them on tonight's thing, so they're not, I can't keep track of them.
Okay, and finally, as
Volume of requests at this point.
there's only been 5 requests.
Volume.
2 of them, yeah, not really. Finally, as we continue to investigate the school's finances, I'd like to inspect the school's claim docket that you've approved tonight. After the meeting, will you be willing to allow me to look at the claim docket?
Under what? I didn't catch the first part of that.
To inspect the school's claim docket. We'd like to inspect it after the meeting. Would that be possible for us to do?
Not this evening.
Any reason in particular why?
That's something I have to check on with council.
Is she here tonight?
Unfortunately, she's not.
Ah. Okay, I think that concludes my questioning. Thank you.
Peggy Stallbrink?
Yes. I have a question about the studies on asbestos at both schools. When was the last study done on asbestos in the Wanata or the LaCrosse school?
The information I found is very, very old. I believe most recent information I could come up with was from like '94.
Do you have any idea why that hasn't been updated?
I don't, but I intend to have that rectified ASAP.
Okay, in the financial report that was done on the Wanata school, that would not have been included in the cost of the Wanata school.
I think they're under the impression that if something's weak here, then asbestos remediation will be required at that time.
Right. So there's additional expense.
So you're asking if there's asbestos issues here at Wanata? Is that correct?
Yes. Do you know if there are?
I honestly do not know that as we
So
sit here.
if there are additions made to the school, that would have to be addressed, right?
Yeah. I see a trustworthy hand back there in Scottsville, Jerry.
No, there's no asbestos.
There's no asbestos.
When I first came here, we had some old tiles underneath the stage, and they're gone. Everything's cleaned up there.
Okay, so no asbestos.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scotty.
And Ms. Dahlberg, I do know we have done, within the last like 6 years, there were two, I believe, two other additions done. So during that time frame, if there were anything like that, that would have came through any kind of other improvements, that probably would have also showed up during that period. But of course, there's always surprises anytime you're doing any kind of, because there's always unknowns with any kind of project. But there were two other projects within like the last 6 or 7 years that would hopefully would address that if anything were prevalent at that time.
Okay, so if you had to do an addition to, say, this cafeteria or your maintenance room, your boiler room or anything, there's no asbestos there?
They had to check that. When they first made, put his additions on, like they said, they went through everything that they had to tie into and fix, and there was no asbestos. They had, everybody else,
Okay, just check. Thank you.
yes, they did.
Lisa Rosenkrantz?
Yes, can you tell me the cost of the bus purchases that you're approving of tonight, and also the cost of the high school gym sound system upgrade?
They are both on the agenda items. I can give you both of those when we get to those.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yes, have you looked into the cost of the demolition for the gymnasium at the high school, given your desire to move the high school here?
Well, we've reached out for that information, and we have not been given those figures yet.
Okay, that's my other question.
There's no intent to
There's no
demolition.
intent to demo the gym
There's no intent to demolish the gymnasium.
Then what's your
There's no
intent for the building?
or the building at
Thank
this
you,
point.
Darren. Let me, now that I comprehend the question, there's no intent to demolish anything at this point.
Yeah.
So does that
School neither.
answer your question better? There's been no discussion, no consideration of demolition of anything.
Then what is going to be done with the building?
We don't have that answer yet.
Do you know the cost it's going to take to maintain that building for X amount of years until you figure out what you're going to do with that building?
You're asking in terms of while it's empty?
It'll need to be heated.
I would agree with that. And no, we don't know what the adjustment costs are on if the building is not being used. Not at this time. We will have that information though.
What about the gym that's supposed to be built here? We heard that there was talk of a full barn type athletic center that would be built over by the LaCrosse school.
That one's, when I heard that one's completely out of left field.
Are you able to make a commitment to the community that the gymnasium will continue to serve Tri-Township for student athletes?
Yep, I can repeat that commitment because we've said that quite often. We have no intention of leaving the Tiger Den.
What if it becomes a fiscal responsibility that the school corporations no longer handle?
That will happen someday, 10 years, 50 years,
4, 2, 1?
100.
No.
I mean, again, that's what happens to buildings. Eventually, they do wear out, so
Especially when they're not maintained.
I agree. I agree with that fully.
You walked into this. You walked into this building like this.
There's board members that have been sitting on that seat for more than 3 years.
That were elected by
Us.
Miss-
These board members were elected
Mrs.
by us.
Rosenkrantz, do you have any other comments on agenda items?
I do not.
Thank you. Bob Youngren.
My question is, what would happen to your payroll if Prairie Township pulls out of Tri-Township?
I would imagine that would be a bad thing for payroll.
14.9%.
Okay?
why
Any
are
other,
people-
any other comments on agenda items?
Nope, that's
Okay.
all I was asking.
Okay. Jim Shealy?
Yeah, Jim Shealy, I'm a longtime resident of Dewey Township, and I have two grandchildren in Tri-Township schools. One's in high school and one's in elementary. And I know the board and everyone really wants the best interest for the kids. We have some disagreements, but I just respectfully want to say that I disagree with Mr. Shepherd and some of the board members' assumption that the kids would be better off moving to Wanata you know, the school corporation and taxpayers. I don't think it would be in anybody's best interest. And and my question is, would the board be willing to entertain having racial architects come and give a detailed presentation on their proposal?
We have entered into some discussions on that, and I will tell you that we would like to schedule another night between now and November's regular scheduled board meeting, and I believe that could be a part of that next night with some additional dialogue between a group of, with us, and a group of people.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And Jim, I would like to say, in a lot of respects, I agree with you. Here's what I mean by that. Here's what I mean by that. If I had my personal preference, I would snap my fingers and have every school in Indiana be like LaCrosse High School. I'd go the other direction. I think that would be great for kids, but that's not financially feasible. That's all I'm doing here, is I'm a superintendent in 2020. So, but for me personally, I like small schools. I love the old historic schoolhouse. But going backwards in this position just makes no sense. So I just wanted to validate part of what you're saying.
Well, I just want to know that we've looked at numbers too, and that's why I disagree, and a lot of people do.
Okay,
So,
yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Yep, thanks, Jim.
Kathy Pearson?
Yes, I've asked to speak. We did talk to you after the February walkthrough, and we suggested some ideas, and
Yeah,
I've been frustrated ever since because I thought we had such a nice visit that day.
I thought we did too.
Thank you. In February of 2020, the public was invited to a meeting at the school in LaCrosse. Mr. Shepherd led a walkthrough tour of the school. What we saw that night made many townspeople realize there was something very wrong going on in our school system. The building had been neglected, and worse than that, had been staged to appear even worse. Mr. Shepherd shared concerns of bad smells and bad ceiling tiles had been taken out, walls were missing pictures, bulletin boards were messy, dirt was left not swept up, lights were dim, and others could probably share more. We were supposed to feel embarrassed, humiliated, to submit to your will, but it backfired. As people gathered and started talking, we knew others felt the same as us. Some went the next night and they saw that it had been cleaned up some, so they knew that we had heard something about our union set. With COVID and executive meetings, the public didn't get a chance to meet again until September. At this meeting, Chuck Hupper, Jim Shealy, and some I didn't know came in with folders prepared to speak. There was a quick meeting, which was reported clearly in the regional news, and quickly adjourned. Mr. Shealy spoke and questioned when he would be allowed to speak about the plan to move the high school to Wantage. He was put off, and maybe he could better explain what transpired. Basically, we were told the next part of the meeting would be about their future plan. However, shortly after that, the public was handed a paper saying, well, now you're not going to be allowed to speak during this because we're calling this a work session. Again, this plan backfired. After this deliberate meeting to keep the public uninformed, a group of concerned citizens began meeting weekly. It's a positive group. People focused on keeping the school at Wanata and at LaCrosse. Each week we try to examine what has led us to where we are today. Justin Kuehl has been reporting on school board meetings since he purchased the regional news. If you read the paper, compare what you read to the minutes of the meetings on the school website. There's not much of a record of what's happening at the school board meetings on the school website. And that is why some on the board and some of their closest friends tried to disparage the regional news on Facebook. These same friends have not even witnessed a meeting this year. We realize the reported lack of transparency is now very much true. In our weekly meetings, much has been exposed. We learned that many of the reasons cited by Mr. Shepherd in September are not true. We've learned that we're losing more students at the elementary levels than the high school. We're losing students for many different reasons, and not because of the building at LaCrosse. We have learned the state is not trying to close us. We have learned the school is fixable and it's been intentionally neglected. We have learned that the smells, possible mold or asbestos issues are or were at Wanata as well. And as you know, we did have a mold problem. You and I had to empty that dehumidifier all the time to keep the mold issue down.
There's a difference between.
And I'm glad it's been fixed, but you did have a problem, and it should have been fixed at LaCrosse if they had a
The heating
problem.
system is still.
So we hope the issues are resolved as they should have been at LaCrosse. We learned the school has no real budget. Mr. Shepherd said it was arbitrary. They just asked for the most money they can get from the taxpayers. There's no real budget for capital projects. We know by walking through the two buildings, much more money has been funneled to Wanata. It doesn't make any sense to have one big building with COVID worries looming. It doesn't make sense to have the high school move to the farthest corner of the school district. And it's not fair to expect parents that move close to a school to make all the trips to practices for 12 years instead of 6. As it's been said and written earlier, in 1969, Wanata School was decommissioned. LaCrosse reached out and each town had equal amount of classes. Later yet, when the Wanata building burned where the softball fields are today, the towns worked together for the good. In 2011, LaCrosse lost their elementary. Nobody was reporting it back then. We didn't have the paper. Most of us didn't even know the plans. Well, we know now, and we are motivated, and we too have a vision. We'd like you to look at it.
Mrs. Hucker, I'd like to respond to that. I've gotten calls all week long from people. And the statement that you just released there, oh, that is not true.
What is not true?
That is not true.
What is not true?
We did not clean up anything. It was not fixed to look like that. I've told you that on the phone. I've emailed
I've
you.
never talked to you on the phone.
Yes, as a parent who's got a kid there, it does look like that every day. It does look like that. But if you had a child, you would know that.
May I finish, please?
Sorry.
Another thing that you didn't mention there is I'm very tired of this, and I'm gonna just say it. That money came from Prairie Township residents. That is not being mentioned at all now. It's not just Dewey, Mrs.
Sorry, that's right.
It's not just Dewey. It's 3 townships now. It's called
I'm not just
Tri-Township.
talking about doing, I'm just saying.
I know
we
you're
had
not.
a school when we came together.
I realize you're not talking about Dewey because you're having this fight whether LaCrosse, Wanata. Dewey could have fixed that school up years before Prairie came into there.
It was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, I came here, and I told them about the mold in the downstairs.
This could have been done years ago. Why is it now? Why are you guys complaining now is what I want to know.
It should have been done years ago then.
Then why weren't you complaining then?
We weren't losing our school then. We weren't getting friendly, we were losing our school.
I'm just not going to sit here and let you lie and tell me things that weren't said when I told you. We did
I
not.
never talked to you on the phone, Melody, so I don't know what you're talking about.
You did, Mrs. Pearson.
I said you did, Mrs. Pearson.
We were
Excuse me, can I say something?
We were on Messenger, Melody.
I told you at that time that nothing was made to look like that.
If you listen to that conversation, they said that they tried to fix that wall and it was unfixable, so they left it that way because it was unfixable. If you
I'm
went
sorry,
to
guys.
that, so they left it that way. Not when it's property like that.
Mrs. Pearson, if I can get a copy of that, I would then be able to make an attempt to answer all of those things, because
I'll sit down with you. I have no problem with that.
I've had that
but
standing
I don't like
invitation.
all the blame that you're blaming on
I've had a-
certain people instead of handling some of this.
I've had a standing invitation.
You can get signed.
It's been wide open.
And when I went in, you didn't share it with the board.
And I did give you credit, you and Bob. You took me up on it back in March, and we met for 45 minutes or an hour in my office.
Correct.
Impromptu, the only other person I've sat down and spoke with was Jim Shealy over breakfast at the bistro. Nobody else. Nobody. Because you want to do this. This is what you want. This is what he wants.
You won't even respond to my emails.
All the complaints you have about the process we have set up, I said early on in this entire thing, I believe in good communication, not this. So I've made, meet anytime, anywhere, come sit in your living room. You guys came to my office, I had breakfast with Jim. That's it, nobody else is coming at us, because you wanted this. Now,
How come you haven't answered any of my emails?
you, I am intentionally ignoring. Now, we have, now, I'm gonna break from my rules, because Jim Irwin, since I've been here, comes to every school board meeting. He has to speak, his name's not on here, I'm letting him speak. Go ahead.
One question I want to ask everybody. Where have you been since 2011? I've only missed one school board meeting since we became Tri-Township. So where the rest of you people been hiding at?
Thank you, Jim.
With our record, we've been here on every meeting that they had since they started consolidation. And I haven't seen anybody here except that man right over there. And Mary. And nobody else. Oh, I'll forget, we got one lady back here. I'd like to know where you've been. That's my question. Where have you been?
We trust our school board.
Yeah, when I was a teacher,
We trust our superintendent.
That it was necessary.
Well, I learned a long time ago, you don't trust yourself, you can't trust anybody.
There you go.
I trust myself.
So I would like, I hope the next meeting that we have, when he's gonna schedule the next one, I wanna see as many here as we got tonight, the next one. Then you'll know what's really going on.
Thank you.
That's all I got to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim. I was more than happy to let you have the floor. We got one more person on the list, it's Dick Booker.
I don't mean any disrespect in turning my back on you guys, but maybe I have a cause for a lot of this, you guys. It's possible. And I'm absolutely big enough to take my share of any responsibility that if over the years things didn't get done. You're working with tight budgets, trying to make the most of money to make something that's really in rough shape look great. And I realized back in the early 2000s, wasn't the school that made it great, it was the people that walked the halls. I'm telling you, that is LaCrosse. I love that school. I've had a 60-year love affair with LaCrosse School. I've lived in 4 houses in LaCrosse. I kind of feel like the old guy in Field of Dreams. I'm gonna live and die in LaCrosse, no regrets. And I am. I've had some tremendous friendships, you know, and I've had a lot of people hate me. And I felt like unjustified. But you wanna know something? It's love that endures through those kind of things. And I'm gonna choose that side. And I'm gonna choose to show grace. I'm gonna choose to show mercy to other people, all right? But if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna give you a little tutorial of kind of how this went. Maybe this whole thing would have been different if back in I believe it was 90, when John Shealy got talked into running for the school board. And I think a lot of you guys probably remember that. And John met a horrible death. Got electrocuted out south of town, about a mile. And John was a great individual. Probably would have been a phenomenal trustee, and maybe I wouldn't have been in the spot I was in. I don't know. Either way. So they came and talked to a couple of us about taking over the trustee responsibility. I'll be honest with you, I was scared to death. First of all, I was scared Dean was going to fire me at Booker Construction. Second of all, Glenn Heinel was the former trustee, my uncle, who 2 hours actually meant 40 hours when you came to doing a project. And so I learned that over the years as well. But through the course of doing it, just living out each year as a school member, our teachers were always underpaid. Trying to come up with innovative ways of making money. I remember a year we borrowed money. You could get what is called a tax anticipated loan at the time. So every 6 months you knew you were getting money from the county, right? You got it twice a year. So I found out that if that overall amount is like $750,000 for the year, you can borrow $375. All right, I had enough to be able to pay the bills, but I thought, wait a second, maybe we can make money on this. So I ended up borrowing money from First Source Bank. Guess who I invested the money with? First Source Bank. Craziest thing I've ever done in my life. We raised $35,000, and the state of Indiana was furious with me. But you know, that kind of started the thought of me saying, Dewey Township is worth every bit of it. LaCrosse is worth every bit of it. I don't care what happened. I really didn't. I really didn't care what happened. You know, and I made that statement publicly. You know, I care about us and survival. That was bigger than the other picture. But then on top of that, at that time, everything was based off of a formula. Okay? You were making money off of a kid by a formula. In other words, if our overhead was $550,000, it cost, you know, for teaching and stuff and whatever it worked out to be, each student had a value based on that formula. So at that time, we were exchanging money with Wanata. We'd have never made it to 2000. I thought maybe that's mine. We'd have never made it to 2007. I truly believe that if it weren't for being on the back of Cass Township. I kid you not. There was a year where exchanging even amount of kids, we made $140,000. $140,000. That went a long way for us. Okay, but that was the kind of support and love that Dewey Township, with nobody else's knowledge, was getting from Cass. They wanted their kids to be a part of LaCrosse, right? Was it being, you know, the whole junior high thing? Or the high school thing? I don't know. It's irrelevant at this point. But I do know that they were super supportive in helping us financially to be able to stay afloat, to even get to this point today. So I always admired Tim and Tim's uncle for that. I just always did. Then we get to fast forward, if I could, to 2009, and they changed the game on Prairie Township. They changed the rules. They couldn't knock Prairie out from under their feet because they were too tough. So they changed the rules on them. It's exactly what they did. And they said, you want to know something? You guys from Prairie Township, you need 100 students. Or forget about it. And so they decided, you want to know something? We're going to put together, Bobby, you correct me, okay, please, if I'm wrong on anything here. But they put together a list of 7 items. Legitimate, good questions that they threw out to South Central and LaCrosse. So we got those. Now, what's LaCrosse going to say? At that time, Prairie Township came with, first of all, we had a marriage forever, just never on paper. And at that time, they had, I believe it was 1.6.
2.3.
I think part of that was the township, wasn't it, Bobby?
2.3 million school funds.
If that number's right, Bobby, I'm not here to argue with you. But I do know that what we talked about was how we spent the capital project money and how that should be used. And that's how that new part came about, using what Prairie Township so generously gave us. Okay? But anyway.
You're talking the weight rooms and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we did a lift, we did a remodel on the bathroom downstairs, across from where my wife's office was. And she was not there at the time, you guys, that's not why we did the bathroom. But just for clarification purposes. But anyway, we just said yes to all of them. We said yes to all 7 items. South Central got that same list, and there's 2 of them they rejected. Two of them they said, no, you're not going to tell us how to spend that money. Well, that didn't sit real well with the Prairie Township Board at the time. And so they had worked out kind of a number to give South Central, a number to give Dewey Township, and then they were gonna go with Dewey. But I believe the state told you guys, Bobby, no, money goes where you
Money
go.
goes where we live.
Exactly. So that's how that relationship started, and that's when the Dewey Prairie Consolidated School Corporation started. And in all honesty, you guys, I was so overwhelmed with feeling like I had the entire weight of LaCrosse and Dewey Township, and you know, my hats off to Darren's dad, Glenn Heinold, Fritz Spies, Margie McCormick, those people that had come before me that had to feel like people only cared when they messed up. There was never a compliment. It didn't happen. It just doesn't. For some reason in our society, we eat our own instead of encouraging. You know, and I, for one, I'm sick of that. I'm just tired of it. I don't want to do it. I don't have the energy to do it. You know, I got too much love to pour into my immediate family. And most of you guys are my family. And those you don't know, I hope you are someday. But I feel like I have no animosity toward anybody in this room. I say that with a clear conscience. Justin and I have butted a few heads. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean I don't respect the overall hub of what he's trying to do. So I'm so filled with like just frustration that I don't know I didn't know what to do other than come and just vent to you guys and tell you that any part that I've had to play in this, and you guys talked about that a little bit ago, and I'm over here going, this big body can't hide. Ain't no chair in here that I can sneak behind, because I am partly responsible. But I never felt I ever made a decision at Dewey Township that wasn't based on the fact that I thought it was for the greater good. That includes my own children. And I shielded my family well, because they didn't deserve to, you know, I love Bill Berger. And because of what happened years and years ago, people thought I hated Bill. That's a bunch of garbage. Nobody ever asked me. They just assumed I did. I thought it was for the greater good, you guys. And I've been making decisions my whole life based on those kind of things, because that's the way I was raised. I had one of the wisest, most influential, and the probably a second mom to me, Barb Hucker, when I first started the position, brought me a poem. Actually, she put it in a card. I still got the card, I still got the poem, and I still got a love affair for Barb Hucker. Barb gave me a poem that said, "The Man in the Mirror" was the name of it. If you've never heard of it, I want to encourage you to go home, look it up, and take it to heart. Read what it says. Because at the end of the day, every one of us has to please that person in the mirror. If your motives are pure, if you're looking for somewhere to actually encourage somebody rather than rip them apart, and I know one thing, we're better than that. Wanatah, LaCrosse, Prairie, we're all better than that. That's 3 classy townships, in my opinion. It really is. But we're better than that. And you know, I was the orchestrator of this, you guys. Stop blaming Kelly Shepard. Stop blaming the board. I'm the one that encouraged Darren. I'm the one that encouraged Aaron and Tim. That I thought the overall good, the greater goal, I don't want to lose our school. But I also don't want to be a poor steward of what's been entrusted to me. I don't. And I hope, you know, if the school's never there, I hope the gym stays forever. Who doesn't love walking into that gym to watch a game? If that doesn't give you goosebumps, by the way, that floor was my idea. I didn't pay for it, but it was my idea. We all paid for it. But, you know, I just want to share with you guys on my heart. Kelly Shepard is not the problem here. He's been put in a position to do an impossible job, to impossibly please everybody. Show a little grace. I'm not saying you guys don't have a great idea. Maybe you do. But we got a way that we can do this without eating each other up. Let's do it. Let's show a little bit of class. Thank you.
Thank you.
little something that big. I honestly, and I was born the year my dad started as trustee, and it was 1978 when he gave it up, and so I was only 12. But you know, I think that there was a thought all the way back then that we kept our belt tucked in and didn't spend a lot on the school, just with the thought that someday maybe something else would end up needing to be, you know. So I mean, yeah, you could probably blame my dad back in 1966, you know, and you know, for some of this. But that I was young, so I don't totally remember it all, but I'd have to say there was some of that going on that far back.
All I know is I asked somebody what Tom would have done.
Oh, my goodness.
And
First
he
of
said
all,
he would have been sitting on Mitch Daniels' desk, knocking on his desk back in 2011. But, you know, times have changed. They've changed. So we just have to go with this time now. And I hate to see everyone bad-mouthing and it's unacceptable. Teasing my kids, calling people's mothers, telling people how awful they are.
Making terrible Facebook posts.
It's unacceptable, unacceptable behavior, and that's not how I want my kids raised.
can I add to that, just a
Yes.
thought? I'm just telling you the thought pattern of one person, but if I was looking for a school, and I saw stuff like that on the website, my kids are gonna hightail it anywhere else. I just.
But let's fix it.
That will be
It doesn't have to be tore down. There's numbers. We've had people come in and look. It's not $6 million to fix LaCrosse.
It deserves to be fixed.
You guys, if they leave that
from the
school
get-go,
open,
before he was in this position, it should have been taken care of years ago.
It can be taken care of now.
We voted these
No,
people
we're not.
in.
yeah.
You guys voted
You
these
fix it,
people in years ago.
You fix it.
All you
guys put your money together, you guys
Hey, this money is ours, not just one of ours. It belongs to everybody. It's a Tri-Township school. So why can't we fix that school? When you bring 5 classrooms down here, you guys think this is gonna be cool? There will be no room for growth, not at all. You fix LaCrosse, we got 3 times the space there, the square footage. We can bring in other people. You know, we've got people coming from everywhere to be in LaCrosse. What's the difference? Fix the schools. It's a Tri-Township. There's 3 of us here, not just one of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Penny Adams, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a resident of LaCrosse. I have children who are in the school corporation. Part of my job duties and my professional career is to renovate existing schools and to build new construction. All right? Part of the components here, and I'm hearing all this thing here, and you know what, and everybody's so passionate and in love with their school, and thank you, okay? But what we also have to look in here too, things is the actual education of our students. And that is something that all throughout and through my research here, I'm finding is a little lacking here. And this is the reason why, all right? Excuse me, I'm speaking. I'll let you talk, you let me. First of all, any facility, life safety is foremost, all right? Second of all, for an education is, of course, the educational piece, all right? My sources here and researching here for the time that I have had to do it was actually coming from the Save the LaCrosse webpage, the Facebook pages, and also viewing here this condition assessment. As with the raise of hands, has anybody actually taken the time to read this? You should. Because it's very concerning that there's even kids still in this building right now, to be honest with you. So we're talking about life safety. I appreciate and I respect everybody's feelings. I really truly do, but your feelings will mean nothing to me if my child were to perish in that school. Or if my child were to, excuse me, Or if my child were to sustain an injury and first responders had difficulty getting him out of that building. All right, my children are there for an education. I appreciate history, I love history. If anybody wants to talk about the greatest generation, come and talk to me. I absolutely love history. You can learn so much from it. That's why I'm actually encouraged to hear people saying, I want to keep my history, I want to keep my community. But we also have to be a realist here and focus on the education of our children, of our students, all right? I went through this report. I will not go line item by line item tonight, all right? But I do have that. The numbers that were included in this report, which is on page 62, are incomplete. And they're incomplete for these following reasons. As in my experience, a little over 19 years of renovating and construction facilities and facility management, there was failure of mention in this report of environmental assessments, which we talked about. They failed to include any architectural fees, which, for those of you who don't know, who aren't in the construction industry, your architectural fees are generally based on your overall construction costs, which could be, depending upon the contract and what you negotiate, could be between anywhere of 7 to 9% of your overall construction costs, okay? There also, I was not able to locate anything called project contingency. The what ifs. The what if you open up this wall and oh boy, there was a can of worms that was not included in this. Generally, my experience, that's been 20% of your construction costs, in addition to this baseline here, which your baseline here, according to this on page 62, was a little over 4.8 million. Okay, great, but there were several sections in here, multiple ones. If anybody likes to do homework, great, I've already actually even done it. There are several sections in there that state further investigations, plural, is needed or is required. Therefore, that is telling me that this number of 4.8 million and some change is not a complete picture. So before we all get mad at each other and pitting each other and calling for the resignation of a superintendent for bullying school members, that is what is your threat to society. Somebody had posted something online saying if the school moves out of LaCrosse is going to dry up. Well, no, the town of LaCrosse was in existence before that. It's before my time, but hey. What will kill your society is bullying and mob actions. All right, look what's going on around our country here, people. Okay, that is what is destroying society. If we aren't together on this, then yeah, our society is going to struggle. And I also saw an article in there too, about Mr. Shepard, that basically was stating he was taking his time. I've seen him renovating or working on a facility, cutting grass, pulling weeds, landscape maintenance, and hugging a child. Mr. Shepard, thank you for those actions, by the way. In working here in construction, I've actually dealt with some superintendents who never in a million years would have ever thought about doing that. The one thing that was particularly insulting to me as a parent was the fact that this person was bashing him for greeting a child and for hugging a child. Well, for those of you who don't know, that's called conscious discipline. I encourage you to look it up. It basically is the process here for making a child feel safe and to make them feel comfortable in their learning environment, which is the whole purpose for all of this, is for the education of our students, not to push somebody else's, for whatever reason why they're doing this, they would have to be the ones to answer for that. But school board, I appreciate you, and thank you. And no, you shouldn't have people calling you and trying to bully you and littering your property and making your children feel unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate everyone's comments this evening. We'll move on to the next line items on the agenda, which is the 2021 budget adoption.
So this was our scheduled budget adoption meeting tonight. And we did receive a budget petition from a group of individuals, many of whom are in attendance tonight. So I sought advice from council, the DLGF, and Indiana Association of School Business Officials on what the process is for this. They said it, first off, pretty unique, doesn't happen a whole lot. So, but I'm going to follow what they instructed me to do. So we have our answer to that petition. I'm going to read through that. I will provide a copy of that when requested. And then both of these documents, your petition, public, and our response, will get filed with our budget if the board so chooses to, as we're legally required, to approve it tonight. So our response to budget petition for our 2021 budget. The Tri-Township Consolidated School Corporation received a petition pursuant to, I'm going to skip over the Indiana codes, I'm sure we'll get those. As required, the school corporation is providing findings to the extent that objections were raised in the petition. It should be noted that the Indiana code requires that the petition specifically identify the provisions of the budget, tax rate, and levy to which the taxpayers object. It appears that the petition objects to the process, the school corporation's transparency, and background information, but does not specifically identify any portion of the budget, tax rate, or levy to which they object. The school corporation makes every reasonable effort to provide information to the taxpayers if available. In order to clarify information about the financial resources of the school corporation, it is providing the following findings. The school corporation's overall cash balance by fund as of June 30th, 2020 is approximately as follows. Debt service, $105,000. Operations, $1.145 million. Education, $511,000. Rainy day, $592,000. Construction, $990,000. And other funds, $265,000. The school corporation followed all of the legally required steps in the budget process. The budget timeline and process involved multiple steps, starting with preliminary budget estimates being generated by the superintendent and the business office, and culminating in the school board's formal budget adoption at a public meeting. Some of these steps are administrative and do not involve the school board, but are instead prepared by the superintendent and his staff. In between these steps, the budget is legally advertised and a public hearing is held by the school board. Tri-Township budget was advertised on September 17th, and the public hearing was held on October 1st, all as legally required. At this hearing, members of the public were given the opportunity to comment on the proposed budget. The school board budget adoption meeting is scheduled for tonight. The school board held no illegal meetings about the 2021 budget as indicated in the petition. The operation fund and the education fund are the only two funds out of which ongoing expenditures are made. Prior to 2019, the operations fund consisted of three different funds: transportation, bus replacement, and the capital projects fund. These three funds have now been consolidated into one operations fund and must be utilized for ongoing costs as well as unforeseen future expenses to operate the school corporation. For the calendar year 2019, the difference between the revenue and expenditures in the combined operations fund and education fund was only $32,000 and change. Fortunately, there were no major unforeseen costs such as repair of boilers or roofs. We anticipate the lifespan of our current roof systems are nearing their end. This could lead to the need for unbudgeted large expenditures. In 2020, given the current COVID-related expenses and the drop in enrollment numbers, the school corporation anticipates that expenditures will likely be greater than revenue in the combined education and operation funds. In 2021, it is anticipated that the education fund revenue will decrease from what will be received in 2020, as shown in the attached funding comparison worksheet. It is also anticipated that local income tax and excise tax distributions will decrease. Thus, the combined revenue versus expenditures for these two funds will be down unless the operational maximum levy allowed is generated. In the 2021 budget, the proposed operational fund levy increase is approximately $46,000. It is anticipated that revenue in the combined educational and operational funds will decrease by at least that amount. Also, there is a distinct possibility that state revenue to be deposited in the educational fund will be reduced due to revenue shortfalls at the state levels. For example, a 5 to 10% reduction in state funding would result in a $100,000 to $200,000 or more reduction in the school corporation's funding. The school corporation currently operates two different campuses approximately 8 miles apart, one in Wanata, one in LaCrosse. The long-term school corporation strategic plan involves examining the possibility of closing the LaCrosse High School site. The school corporation has held numerous public meetings over the last 6 to 9 months, including tours of the LaCrosse High School to investigate and discuss such a possibility. If this were to occur, there may be future opportunities to not continue to increase the operations fund levy by the legally allowed growth quotient, but it would be irresponsible to eliminate it for the 2021 budget, in that it is necessary to maintain its possible expenses, especially during these uncertain times. The petition questions the capital projects plan and its specificity. The capital projects plan requires any capital expenditures such as equipment exceeding $10,000 to be listed. Currently, there are no such expenditures in the plan. The bus replacement plan does designate the potential expenditure for new buses. The school corporation maintains its position that it is inefficiently spending upwards of $300,000 on staffing. It further maintains its position this could be mitigated with one unified campus. In the future, if the entire school population is served by one more efficient facility instead of two facilities, one of which is over 100 years old, it is likely that it will be able to provide education in a more efficient manner. If this inefficiency is addressed, we can move towards improving programming opportunities for our students and/or reducing tax levies. The school corporation intends to transfer $120,000, we've already answered that, and that will happen next, for our yearly transfer from the education fund to the operation fund. So there is our response. Again, attached with the petition, and I need for the board to approve our 2021 budget.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Budget approved.
And the board will sign Form 4 from Gateway, and then that gets uploaded, and that will constitute the process for answering that specific petition.
Just one copy.
Yes, just one of those. Item number 8 is I need the approval for that resolution for a monthly transfer from ed to operations at $10,000 monthly. So a not to exceed $120,000 for the year is how it's written.
Make a motion to approve the transfer from education to operations fund.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
And I need one of those. Number 9 is information only tonight. That is your first look at 2021's board meeting schedule. So I'd like for you to take the following month, and we can check those dates and see if there's anything we want to change ahead of time. Bus purchase. I believe a question was asked about the bus purchase price for tonight. It is a used bus, and in addition, we have too many buses, so I have traded 2 buses in, a full-size bus, actually 2 full. So that's so I need approval for that purchase.
Make a motion to purchase the bus.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
The the item on here for the high school gym sound system upgrade. So we've had issues with that sound, and in that gym, I believe, if I remember correctly, some graduation issues came about. And anyways, well, we have an opportunity here, and so, Brian, I'm going to throw it to you as far as where you're at on the sound system for the gym, and if you want to take care of that.
So if you remember last board meeting, I had told you guys that we received a donation of money from the Madge Tucker family. It has increased now to just over $10,000. And they told me find something athletic-wise to use it for. Knowing that our sound system has probably 4 or 5 speakers that are just, they're crackling, they're just in bad shape. Looked at getting a new sound system. So I went this week and was able to get a quote on a new sound system, and to do it right, it will be close to $15,000 total. So we want to use the $10,000 towards it, so I'm asking if we can get the additional money to cover the rest of it from the school. They're more than happy to do that. I talked to the Tucker family today and let them know. Another thing, because if you have speakers up there, you're not going to know who gave them to us or who donated money. So another thing that we're going to do is get a basketball cart, and it'll have a plaque on it in memory of Madge Tucker and the donation that we got. So, I want to do it right. We could do it for $10,000, but I want to make sure whatever speaker system we put in there is going to last. So that's why I want the additional money to pay for it.
You want to be in that gym for a long time, get a good one, right?
Yeah.
So from the board, we're seeking for not to exceed an additional $6,000 of your funds to go with the donated funds that have come into athletics for the Tucker family. And we think with that, soundboard speakers, we can have
I'll
that.
make a motion to approve up to $6,000 additional money to go for the school, for the gym's sound system.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you. And so 12, I'm seeking permission tonight to advertise. This is permission to do the advertising process of a 1028 hearing, to put it on the calendar because it needs 10 days, and we will have more than 10 days out, for our regular November, I believe it's 19th, meeting. Asking permission to advertise that 1028 hearing on a proposed project to relocate our high school to a single campus at Wanatah.
Make a motion to approve advertising for a 1028 hearing at the November 19th meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Thank you. Anything to add on the principal's report, Brian, in addition?
Okay. Just a few things that have happened in the last month. We've had Honor Society induction about 2 weeks ago. We have 10 new members. They were supposed to be inducted last spring at the spring awards. But due to COVID, we couldn't do it, so we moved it to the fall. Our Leo's Club is doing a brownie drive right now for 500 turkeys. And so we are trying to get a total of 400. I'm not for sure where we're at right now. We did have a family that donated 50 already. And I know we've had different families that have donated already, but our goal is to get to 400. So anyone that can help with that. Our freshmen and sophomores, I think, sold over 200 pies as a fundraiser. So those will be coming in next week. Our ag department, student council, and our junior high drama are getting ready to sell laundry soap right now. And that's always been a big fundraiser for us. Fall sports have concluded, so now we're getting into our winter sports, but I wanted to put a congratulations out to Kelsey Rainier. She qualified for the cross-country regional, which was last week. And that's all I have for today, so.
I'll report on Wanatah. I just want to talk about what Mr. Booker said, though, as well. I usually talk about tasks or events that are coming up in the report. I want to talk about the people that are here in the building. The kids, the staff, the community. We're all doing great, in my mind. So I want the community to hear that and know that, because that's why we're doing it. So that's my principal's report, that the kids are doing awesome. We're asking them to do things that are very strange, and they're doing awesome. We're asking our staff members, our teachers to do things that are very strange, and they're doing great. So I want, that's my principal's report.
Thank you.
That was strange, Chris.
Thank you. My superintendent report is all I want to add. You know, I put out a thank you last night, and the outpouring from people in support is wonderful. That is not being said right now to detract from those that are passionate about their high school in LaCrosse. That's not what I'm saying now. And I will say, listen to what Dick Booker said, listen to what Penny said. I'm going to try to do better to let the frustration and the anger go. If it was just me, I wouldn't get as fired up. But my entire family drives 421 for the last 100 years. You know, I have a grandmother too. I've got aunts and uncles. I've got a wife that drives from North Judson and crosses that river and comes here to Wanata because she wants to work with Wanata kids. And so, when my kid stopped and took a picture of the sign that says remove Shepherd in someone's yard who I wouldn't know and they wouldn't know me, it causes me frustration and anger. It boils over at times, and sometimes it probably should. Not always. And because those two were so well spoken, and I was a bit unprofessional at a moment tonight, Ms. Rosencrantz, I owe you an apology. There it is. That was unprofessional what I said to you earlier. I want to shout out to these board members right here, because they have taken just as much abuse as I have. And I have a lot of respect for them because they grew up here, they live here, they have businesses here, they are much more invested. I'm still new, and I'm still trying to be invested in both towns and 3 townships. And it's just about kids. I hired 2 great administrators because that's all they're about is kids. I'm amazed every day with what our staff does. You know, I wanted to say a lot more on my video last night that I put out. What my bus drivers are doing, unbelievable right now. These teachers, I got a kick out of the fact that these teachers have come out and studied what the heck is this guy going on with transportation? And they figured it out so that they could help. Instead of going, oh, he's made a mess of this. I'm going, it's not my problem. They say, oh, okay, I got it now. We've had 3- and 4-person rotations to get buses pulled off, and those people are the ones to be thanked for that. So yeah, thank you, thank all of you people that are in attendance tonight, and feel free to come back. I think Jim said it best. Come back. We do important stuff because it's about kids. So come back and see us again. SA5 reports.
Make a motion to approve the SA plan reports.
I'll second them.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to have a last statement before you adjourn, please. Most of you people probably don't know me. I ran this school for 4 years, from 1983 to 86. I was up at 4:30 in the morning running these roads to see if it's safe to drive a bus. I went out for the fall, I let them know time. I did the contract with the teachers, I did everything, just like Mr. Goose and Mr. Booter. I worked with Marge McCormick when she was trustee down there. So I know what that man's going through. We had to do an assessment, I spent a lot of nights. I looked 3 days for 1 penny, and I found it, satisfied the State Board of Accounts. So you need to take off your shoes and walk in somebody else's for a while. I took the kids first. I so much money when I lost the election. I left the school corporation. I had less than a little over 100,000. I left the school corporation with $396,000. But I got a first-class commission for this school. Excuse me. 2 years later, they eliminated it and went to a whole new system. The kids come first, and then it was the taxpayers with me. And I had, you got one guy in this room. It wasn't for me giving him the jump to Purdue, Super Saturday, and that he probably wouldn't be where he's at today. I sent 14 kids up there, and I paid out of my pocket sometimes for that bus driver to go up there and come back with the kids. So I know the kids. I even took the kids out of school, took them to the pumpkin patch. I did a lot of things. I took them to Chicago to the play, because I had a school bus driver. I wanted to see what the school bus driver would put up with. If you never go with us, you have another job. That's all I got to say.
I just want to thank everybody for coming this evening. This is refreshing that we have this. This is great communication. I respect every one of you for your taking time out of your evening this evening. What we're doing is easy, but the lives you're all living isn't easy. None of us know the burdens that we're all carrying. And it is, we live in such a challenging world right now, and all these challenges coming against us and our kids and our families. And there is so much love in this room. There's so many opportunities for us to figure things out rather than hatred and the negativity. And a lot of the people that spoke tonight, like Mr. Booker and Mr. Irwin and many of the individuals who's mentioned or their names were brought up this evening, they've dedicated their lives for serving all of you and all of us. And nobody knows what people are doing when they leave a meeting. Things don't stop. And 24/7, you're on call when you're in these positions. You dedicate your lives to try to do the right thing, and I try to do the same thing. This all started roughly a year ago because of a recommendation. Nobody said anybody was doing anything. Nobody said that there was going to be an imminent project. This started because one person took all the darts and said, I've been here for long enough, and here's what I see, and here's what I think my opinion is, and here's my recommendation. No decision was ever made. There's been transparency from the beginning to the end about come to my office, talk to me, call me, email me. We've had the town hall sessions, we've had the working sessions, we've had people come into the gymnasium. All these events have been taking place to try to be as transparent as possible. And we're living in this negative world with all the negative posts and these things where there should be more love and people talking together, working together, rather than what has been surrounding us. And I look at our school, and it doesn't matter what's on the outside of the school, it matters what's on the inside. And what Mr. Shepherd does and what those two gentlemen do every single day, not just the 2 years that Mr. Shepherd's been here and the dedication Mr. McMahon has for I don't know how many years now, and Mr. Gabriel, the short time they've been here, is about what happens inside, not what brought the brick and mortar and the outside that makes this place special. And I live in Wanata, and I will spend the rest of my life in Wanata, but I work in Chesterton, and I speak about people, and everybody talks about the special place we have here, the special community, that just Wanata, LaCrosse, and the whole Tri-Township, Prairie Township. People, this is a desirable place. Everybody's looking for land here. They want homes here. They want to live here. And I have the last 9 months with all these posts, people are asking me, what's going on? Why? What happened down there? We're trying to hire preachers, pastors. We're trying to bring kids here. We're trying to do all these things to improve our society, to make things better, to lift our burdens up, to try to just work off of each other's positive emotions. And instead, we're just living these burdens, and all because of a recommendation that started a year ago. I mean, again, a lot of people have given up their lives and nobody knows what they're going through, but I ask if you're not willing to say the comments that you say on Facebook or to any of us in a negative connotation without sitting down and asking for the facts, would you want your child to be spoken to, or when you want your mother to be spoken to like that, or your father to be spoken to like that. Look in the mirror and think about who you're talking to, because it's not just about a Facebook where you can hide behind a Facebook page. It's about, or an email. It's the fact that everybody has a mother or a father or somebody that loves them, and we are just beating each other down for no purpose, when at the end of the day, this is all we have. We just have each other to try to come to the best resolution for the best situation, and not one of us have any personal motivations whatsoever other than to take care of the kids that are the most important. And that's why we give up the time we do, and that's why we dedicate our lives to try to do the right thing, because we believe we have a purpose to do so. Do I have a motion?
Who's seconding Mr. Rust's motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ward.
I appreciate everybody's attendance. Thank you.